You're standing in your kitchen, late at night. The leg hums, a glass of water fills, and suddenly you're not here anymore. You're back at a childhood table, same hum, same glass, same late night quiet, tasting a moment you haven't lived in years. A blink later, you're somewhere else entirely, seeing yourself next week, walking into a room, answering a question you haven't been asked yet. No machine, no portal. Just your mind slipping through time like it owns the place. We don't usually call that time travel. We call it memory, daydreaming, deja vu, or anxiety about the future. But psychologists have a sharper word for the ability behind all of it. Chronesthesia, your brain's capacity to mentally place yourself in the past and the future, and to feel those imagined moments as if you're actually there. It's not just recalling facts or predicting outcomes. It's a full-body sense of me then and me later, complete with sights, sounds, and emotions. And once you notice it, you realize it's everywhere. In nostalgia that makes you cry at a song, in rehearsal thoughts before an interview, in dreams that feel like previews, and in the stories ancient cultures told about prophets and vision quests. Tonight, we're going to open that black box, how the brain does it, why it evolved, and why it can feel so uncannily real that we begin to wonder whether time is more elastic than we think. What chronesthesia is and isn't? The term chronesthesia is usually credited to cognitive psychologist Unsolved, who argued that humans possess a special form of consciousness he called autonoetic awareness, the sense that the I who is remembering or imagining is the same I who lived or will live the event. That's different from semantic memory, facts, or procedural memory, skills. Chronesthesia rides on episodic memory, the lived texture of experience. When it's working well, you don't just remember that a birthday party happened. You see the cake, smell the candles, and hear that one weird laugh from your uncle. And crucially, you can also project forward with the same vividness. Composing future episodes, your body believes enough to speed your heart or soften your mood. Under the hood, several brain regions collaborate. The hippocampus helps stitch together where and when, reassembling sensory fragments into a coherent scene. The prefrontal cortex plays director asking, what if? And stringing scenes into plans. A larger communication network, called the default mode network, hums during rest and daydreaming, linking memory and imagination. In lab studies, these regions light up not only when we relive the past, but also when we pre-live the future. Some researchers even speak of time cells in the hippocampus neurons that fire in sequences, that seem to encode moments in order like silent ticks on an inner clock. A walk through time past, future, and the space between. Imagine a woman named Lena walking past a bakery on a rainy morning. The warm smell of butter triggers a flash. She's 5, reaching for a pastry, a hand brushing hers. In less than a second, her hippocampus reassembles a scene it hasn't played in decades. The world around her dims for a moment. The memory becomes the room she's standing in. But chronesthesia doesn't linger. It pivots. Lena keeps walking and begins imagining a conversation at work later that day. In her mind, she hears her boss ask a question. She sees her own face react. She rehearses an answer, edits it, tries another, picks the strongest. This is not a trivial daydream. It's an evolved survival tool. Mental time travel lets us test futures without breaking anything in the present. By the time Lena reaches her building, her brain has simulated 3 outcomes and chosen the least risky path, future memory crafted from past experience. These jumps, back and forward, make us who we are. They knit a continuous story from scattered moments. I remember. Therefore, I will. And when the system misfires, we feel it. People with severe damage to the hippocampus can't form new episodic memories and often can't vividly imagine their future. Without mental time travel, tomorrow becomes a fog without landmarks. Time, strangely, is harder to believe in when you can't visit it. Why it feels paranormal and why it isn't, if chronesthesia is just a brain function? Why does it sometimes feel like something more like premonition, prophecy, or a glitch in reality? Part of the answer is how faithfully the brain simulates. When you pre-experience an event, your body participates. The stress hormones spike before a hard conversation. The dopamine drip of imagining a celebration. Because the emotions are real, the scene can feel real, even if it's still a draft. Another part is the brain's efficiency. It doesn't store memories as perfect movies. It stores pieces. A smell, a chair, a face, a mood. When one piece appears in the present, your brain fills in the rest. That is why deja vu feels like time slipping. Your pattern detector recognizes the bones of a moment before you consciously do, handing you a strange sense of I've been here, without a full memory to attach it to. It's also why predictive dreams sometimes seem to come true. We dream countless scenarios. The few that line up with reality stand out, and our storytelling minds highlight hits and forget misses. But don't confuse natural with ordinary. Chronesthesia is a deep power. It's the basis for long-term planning, empathy. How will future you feel if present you does this? And culture itself. Ancient peoples recognized something like it when shamans sought visions, when oracles saw what might come, when philosophers wrote about the soul wandering through time and sleep. They gave it spiritual language. We give it neuroscientific language. We might both be pointing to the same human skill, building bridges between now and not now. At its best, chronesthesia gives us counterfactuals. What if I had taken that train? What if the city floods? These what-ifs allow us to prepare for disasters, craft better tools, and create art. At its worst, it traps us spinning rumination about the past we can't change, or catastrophic futures that never arrive. The same network that makes us strategic can also make us anxious, because the brain doesn't always distinguish between a vividly imagined danger and a real one. Evidence and limits. So what do we actually know beyond poetic metaphors? Functional MRI studies repeatedly show overlapping activation in memory and prospection, the act of simulating future episodes. Experiments ask participants to recall a past event, then imagine a specific future one, rating vividness and detail. The more descriptive the future scene, the more the hippocampus and prefrontal areas synchronize. Clinical observations back this up. When those regions are compromised, people struggle not only to recall but to project themselves ahead with sensory detail. But there are limits to what science can promise here. We don't yet have a neat equation for turning neurons into nostalgia or circuits into prophecy. We can map activity and measure behavior. The subjective sense of me across time remains, by definition, personal. That mystery doesn't mean magic. It simply means consciousness still outpaces our instruments. Training the traveler. If you love exploring the science within mystery that hides behind everyday life, subscribe to Sensei Mystery now. Each week, we uncover another secret that history and science almost forgot. Can you strengthen this superpower? In a way, yes. Techniques like episodic future thinking ask you to describe a specific future moment in full sensory detail. The setting, the sounds, your body posture, then connect that imagined moment to a concrete action you'll take now. People use it to save money, stick to diets, and keep promises to their future selves because the future stops being abstract. Memory palaces, used since ancient times, train the brain to place information in imagined spaces, boosting recall by giving the hippocampus locations to work with. Even simple journaling, writing vivid entries about today and projecting tomorrow, seems to sharpen the contours of mental time travel. You're not breaking the timeline. You're teaching your mind to move across it with more purpose. The human story of time. Think about what civilization is at its core. Lessons from the dead applied to the unborn. Law codes, calendars, star charts, histories, all versions of chronesthesia scaled up. We remember the patterns of floods to predict the harvest. We preserve failures so we don't repeat them. We send letters to future readers, including this video, captured in a moment. Preserve for someone you will be tomorrow or next year when you press replay and hear a different meaning. In that sense, media is a machine that lets our chronesthetic minds communicate across time. It is a reminder that the human story didn't start with us and want to end with us, and that every plan we make is a pact with people we haven't met yet, including our own future selves. Time travel without the paradox. Chronesthesia won't let you step into a portal and shake hands with your older self. It won't fix history or guarantee tomorrow, but it does something quieter and arguably more radical. It lets you bind your past and future into a single, continuous you. It turns mistakes into maps. It lets grief carry wisdom forward. It allows courage to exist before the moment that demands it. So the next time you feel deja vu or find yourself rehearsing a scene that hasn't happened, don't dismiss it as a glitch. Notice it. You re-witnessing one of the rarest tricks in nature, a mind simulating time with enough fidelity to change what actually happens when you get there. No DeLorean needed. Just a brain, a story, and a willingness to visit the edges of now. We chase time machines in fiction because they promise escape. Chronesthesia offers something better: responsibility. The power to meet your future self with fewer apologies and to leave your past self with a little more grace. And if the idea of time slipping through consciousness fascinates you, watch our next episode, The Man Who Met His Future Self in 1920. It's the strangest documented time slip in history, and you'll see why scientists still can't explain it. If that isn't a superpower, what is?